King Kong has roared his way back into theaters with the new film Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire. So today, let's rank all 13 King Kong films from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name's Justin here. I try to watch everything that hits theaters and on streaming services. If you guys are like me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming content. Leave your list down below. How would you rank all 13 of the King Kong films? There are a few animated films, some remakes, and one's part of the MonsterVerse as well. So make sure to leave your list down below. Coming in last place is The Mighty Kong. The Mighty Kong is an animated musical, and it's essentially a beat-for-beat remake of the original King Kong film. But nothing really happens in this film. It's done with terrible animation, music that makes no sense and adds nothing to the film. And this is done by the Sherman brothers, who have worked with Disney before. So you have some talent behind this film, but just the animation, it does not feel complete. There's no expression to the characters. There's no exciting moments going to Skull Island and discovering Kong. There's no excitement to the music moments. This is just a terrible musical adaptation of Kong. Coming in at number 12 is Kong, King of Atlantis. This is one of two of the animated films that are based on the animated series, which I have not seen, so I have no knowledge of that animated series, and if this movie is anything like that animated series or if it continues. But going into this movie, this is another poorly done animated film. You'll have songs in this one too that add nothing to the story. Like I said, I haven't watched the series, but a lot of the elements are silly. You have gigantic Kong, which is reborn from the DNA of the original Kong, and combine that with a human. So there's just really complex storylines for Kong for really no reason at all. There's no exciting moments within this film. The musical moments are terrible. They serve no purpose within this film. The animation is below average at best. I had no fun watching this, and it makes me not want to watch the animated series. Even if it's good, I have no interest in watching it. Coming in at number 11 is Kong, Return to the Jungle. This is the other animated film based on the series, and the animation is worse within this film. It feels like an early PS2 video game style of animation. There are more musical moments. I don't know what it is with these animated films having to have music in it.
Just stop doing it. You're going to drive me crazy.
It just does not fit into these movies at all. But you have a storyline that's just a little bit better than the previous animated film, where the other one kind of lacks some originality. There's some interesting things they do with this film, but for the most part, it is just an average animated film with bad animation, musical moments that make no sense. Kong is not all that likable either. There's really no exploration of the storyline in here. It's just a film I sat down, I watched, and I have no memory of it, and I just want to forget all about it and just move on with my life.
You ruined it, and I'm leaving.
Coming in at number 10 is Son of Kong. Son of Kong was released in the same year as the original King Kong. They capitalized on the success of that film, but Son of Kong seems like a cash grab. There's less performances, smaller budget, less action, and not many stakes within this film. It takes so long to actually get back to the island and introduce the character Son of Kong. It wastes so much time in the beginning with nonsense storylines that you could just rip out of the film and add more of Son of Kong. I like that the character from the original film had some remorse, and he was apologizing to Son of Kong for what he did to his father, King Kong. So at least there is some reflection on that previous film, but that was just a very brief moment within this film. That all happened on the island, which is like the last 20-ish minutes of the film. So everything prior is just in preparation to get to the island, some subplots along the way that really could have been taken out of the film. There's not many stakes in here. You don't feel a sense of urgency, and since Son of Kong befriends the characters, you don't really have much intensity in here. So since he is very friendly you don't have any urgency within this film, as it's just a chance for the character from the previous film to apologize, and that is it. It is a poorly executed movie. Coming in at number 9 is King Kong Lives. This is a sequel to the 1970s remake of Kong. After Kong falls from the Twin Towers, he is in a coma for 10 years. When his heart begins to fall, scientists engineer an artificial heart, and a female ape is captured to serve as a source for blood transfusion. The whole storyline is interesting enough to warrant the watch of this film. The whole heart transplant in the beginning is quite silly, but for the most part of this movie, it feels like it's not raising its stakes and not having an opportunity to feel intense. Feels like more of a drama this time around. You have minor characters with Linda Hamilton in it that really serve no purpose within this film. I like exploring a female ape in here and the relationship with Kong. But it's a film that tried to have some action that really didn't amount to much. It's a storyline that felt really drawn out. It's nowhere near as amusing as its predecessors. So King Kong Lives has potential with its storyline, but it's really not that executed, and it just feels like a waste of a decent story. Coming in number 8 is King Kong vs Godzilla. The first time that King Kong and Godzilla met up, it was very convoluted. You have a really odd story of a pharmaceutical company that stages a fight between Godzilla and Kong, and it really does feel forced. Just bringing them all together, nothing really flows natural, and you have your rubber suit moments. It's pretty silly, but the action is at least entertaining. It is a fun time. It is not a terrible movie by any means, but it isn't one either that has so many thrills throughout. King Kong's pretty good in here, so is Godzilla. But this film by Ishiro Honda laid the groundwork for future Godzilla films, and you see a lot of moments that Adam Wingard did in his Godzilla vs Kong film, and how he was kind of paying homage to this film. It's entertaining, it's silly, a bit convoluted at times, but a pretty decent Kong film and a Godzilla film as well. Coming in at number 7 is King Kong Escapes. This is another film by Ishiro Honda, who also worked on a lot of Godzilla films, and this is based on the Rankin and Bass animated series, and it's pretty ridiculous as well. After watching all of the Godzilla films and then going through the King Kong films, I see a lot of similarities between this film and the Godzilla films that Ishiro Honda did as well. Even the score feels very similar to some of the early Godzilla films. But this one's pretty fun. You got a mecha King Kong in here, and it does provide for some pretty decent action within this film. It does take some time to really get started. I feel like the beginning of this film moved rather slowly. We have King Kong, who's brought in by the evil Doctor Who to dig for Element X in a mind where the robot Kong is unable to do the task. This eventually leads to the machine and the real Kong having a battle, so you do have some fun moments along the way, and a pretty interesting story as well. Like I said, it does take its time to get a little bit started, but you do feel like that cartoon vibe. The designs of this robot Kong does look very cartoony, and I could see it being based on an animated series. Coming at number 6 is King Kong from 1976. This stars Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. Does a pretty decent job of adapting and remaking the original Kong film. It's a bit long and slow leading up to the island. There's not enough to balance the 3 parts, and I feel like it needed a little more action at the end of the film. There's a lot of setup in the beginning, headed to the island, Jeff Bridges' character on board the ship, meeting Jessica Lange as well. And then there's not enough time spent on the island discovering the ins and outs of exploring Skull Island, and then also not enough action at the end with bringing Kong back to the States. So there's a little bit of an unbalance when it comes to the 3 acts within this film. It leads to some of the heavier action scenes with Kong to be not as rounded out as it could be. It's got a decent cast behind it, and it looks pretty good. Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange are great. They have good chemistry together, and Kong looks pretty good and intimidating as well. It's not a terrible remake, but not one that is easily compared to that original film. Coming at number 5 is Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. This was a lot of fun. It unfortunately didn't have that one big action scene, that one moment that really stood out and goes, wow, that was absolutely amazing. I like Kong exploring more of Hollow Earth and him wanting to find more apes. You have a more of a personal storyline for Kong in here, and him against Scar King. There's some good action scenes within that, but I wanted that a little earlier on within this film. Little less of human characters. They really toned that down, which was impressive, and having Godzilla in it as well, who only had a brief few scenes here and there, but for the most part it's action packed. You want some dumb monster mayhem, you're going to get that with Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, but unfortunately for me it's my least favorite in the MonsterVerse, but a pretty entertaining film altogether. Coming in at number 4 is Godzilla vs Kong. This is where they really just amped up the action for Godzilla and Kong. You felt the intense moments between the two, the conflict that they have, them putting aside their differences to fight off against Mecha Godzilla. This was fun. It had a little more human characters compared to New Empire. They were nicely balanced out. There was some nice moments of exploring Hollow Earth, just like really expanding on the idea of Hollow Earth within the MonsterVerse. Beautiful animation. I love the neon colors that are provided throughout the film. It makes it really pop, and you felt that destruction within this film. But Godzilla vs Kong, entertaining, exactly what you want for a film that has Godzilla and Kong duking it out. Plus you got Mecha Godzilla, which is always a plus.
And that's the way, I like it.
Coming at number 3 is Kong Skull Island. The first MonsterVerse film that had Kong is really good. The cast is absolutely stacked with Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, John Goodman, Samuel L. Jackson, just to name a few. I love that this film not only grew Kong as a character, but also explored a lot of Skull Island and gave us other creatures. And you just felt the intense moments around every corner in Skull Island. The cinematography is stunning in here. The visuals are truly some of the best in the MonsterVerse, and you really feel that Kong just towers over everything within this film. There are some brutal action scenes for it being a PG-13 film, but I just love how they just had a more in-depth look at Kong. You're able to feel some of the emotions that he has. It does become a little bit silly with John C. Reilly, but for the most part, this is a great introduction for Kong within the MonsterVerse, exploring a different era of Monarch, which is interesting. I love the series as well on Apple TV Plus, exploring more of that. But Kong Skull Island looks great, action-packed scenes, and Kong is awesome. Coming in at second place is the original King Kong. Now I feel like this is where I'm going to lose a few of you. Yes, the original King Kong is good. It is obviously one of the best King Kong films. It is a great monster film. This film does a great job of establishing the purpose to getting to Skull Island, then spending a decent amount of time there. And the scream from Fay Wray is iconic. And there's a lot of emotion at the end when he comes back to the States. So the connection between Fay Wray's character and Kong, and how people have tried to capitalize Kong. And there's some personal moments and depth for those scenes at the end back in the States. So the original film, for a film that was released almost 100 years ago, there is pure invention within this film. It feels very magical for the time it was released. And a lot of the direction is breathtaking. I love exploring this film, its reveal, everybody's reaction. It was very believable. This is an outstanding film. But coming in first place is Peter Jackson's King Kong. This is my personal favorite Kong. I like that it just took everything that the original film did so well and expanded every aspect to it. You have a more in-depth setup, more time spent on the island, and the results of bringing Kong to the States. Every act of this movie has like an hour to it. Setting up the ship and getting to the island, wanting to film this movie, then spending a lot of time on Skull Island, Naomi Watts meeting Kong, and seeing all the different monsters, Adrian Brody there, and Jack Black. There's a pretty good cast within it. And then you get to the end with Kong just tearing through the streets, climbing to the top of the building, and seeing how he wants to protect Naomi Watts within the film. It does feel very heartbreaking. There's a lot more emotion to it. Now, if you put the original Kong at number 1, I totally respect that. But the King Kong from 2005 was the first Kong film that I saw. And I remember seeing it in theaters, being amazed at the effects and the acting and the structure of this film and the dedication to each different act within it and all of the heart and emotion at the end. I love this film. It looks so good. There's a lot of intense moments and I love the acting in here. Naomi Watts is great. Jack Black, Adrian Brody are really good in this film as well. For me, it's my personal favorite Kong. And it's one that I often like to explore. Despite it being very long, I think it plays out very nicely and there's a balance between each different act and you get a lot of depth for each one. So there you guys have it, all 13 Kong films ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Justin Watches Movies and you guys stay classy, YouTube.